All right, we're at part 2, the second half. In this second half of my parts of speech review, I will go into a bit more detail about what I have already mentioned, and I will explain interjections, and then I will finish with a summary of what we have learned. So let's start with 2 new related ideas here. So maybe I start off with saying Sandra sang softly. All right, let's look at the parts of speech. Sandra is a noun. To be more specific, it's a proper noun, right, because it's a specific name. Sang is a verb. Softly is an adverb. So I haven't mentioned adverbs yet. Adverbs, the easiest way to remember them is that they go with verbs. They help explain how actions are done. That's not the only way to use them, and I have talked about adverbs separately, but that's the easiest way to remember them. So she didn't just sing, she sang in a certain way. She sang softly. Here's another idea that's related to this first one. Right? So it could be something that she's doing at the same time as she's singing, right? So for example, maybe she carried her new baby. Let's look at the parts of speech in this second sentence. She is a pronoun, carried is a verb, her is another pronoun, new is an adjective, and baby is a noun. The most important thing to remember here with this example of these 2 sentences is that nouns and pronouns are 2 different things. So here we have the noun Sandra in this first sentence. But here, instead of starting the sentence with a noun, we've started it with a pronoun. So instead of saying Sandra carried her new baby, we're saying she carried her new baby, right? So we're using a pronoun, she, instead of a noun. So pronouns can be used instead of nouns. Now, because we just mentioned Sandra, we know who she is when we say she, right? But if we never mentioned the name Sandra, then she could be any female. So remember, pronouns are different than nouns. Pronouns can be used instead of nouns. All right, let's connect those thoughts together, right? Sandra sang softly. She carried her new baby. We'll connect them together using a coordinating conjunction. We could say, Sandra sang softly, comma, and she carried her new baby. I wonder if you can spot our coordinating conjunction. A hint is that you always put a comma before a coordinating conjunction. Sandra sang softly, and she carried her new baby. So our coordinating conjunction is this word and. Right? So again, the coordinating conjunction, it connects 2 full thoughts or actions together. So we've taken 2 sentences and put them into one. Our first sentence was, Sandra sang softly. Our second sentence was, she carried her new baby. But instead of having 2 separate sentences, we just have one sentence. Sandra sang softly, comma, and she carried her new baby. Sandra sang softly, and she carried her new baby. So the most important thing here is to remember to always put a comma before a coordinating conjunction. This is a specific rule for coordinating conjunctions, and I have a whole separate video and notes all about conjunctions where I explain there's actually 2 different kinds of conjunctions, and we'll touch very briefly on those 2 types of conjunctions today. You can get more detail in that extra resource though. All right, so we could even add on some more information with a preposition. So we're going to make that sentence I just shared with you a little bit longer with some extra information at the end. So here we go. Sandra sang softly, and she carried her new baby across the room. So I don't know if you could see where the preposition is, right? The preposition is that word that we use to start off that little bit, those extra few words at the end. So our preposition is this word across. So again, a preposition, it just adds information. And something really important here is the best way to use a preposition is at the end, right? You would never start a sentence with a preposition, because starting with a preposition will not get you a full sentence. Using a preposition just means that you add a couple of words on, right? Not a full sentence at all. You just add a couple of words on just to add some more information or some more detail. So remember that prepositions add on information without needing a full thought, right? When we've got a full thought, that means we've got a full sentence. So that's why just use prepositions. The easiest way to use them is towards the end of a sentence. Some of you might be wondering, well, could I have more than one preposition in a sentence? Yes, you could, right? I have a separate video and notes on prepositions as well if you'd like to learn more. Sometimes we want to express emotion with a quick word or phrase. So I haven't talked about this part of speech yet. So when we express emotion like this, we create an interjection. So let me share some examples of interjections now. This is great, or watch out. Really? Wonderful. Psst. So you know how sometimes you say that if you're whispering something to someone, psst, that word, that's an interjection. Or also, cool, eh? So that's not all of them. I have even more examples, video and notes at this link here on my website. You can check that out if you'd like to know more. We'll do one example using an interjection though today. So let's think of one example here. So here's an example. Wonderful. I am very happy because my family will visit soon. So I don't know if you can spot the interjection. Probably the easiest way to use an interjection is to put it at the beginning, right? Usually you would use an interjection with another sentence, right? So maybe you put your interjection, right? So here's my interjection, actually, this wonderful exclamation mark, wonderful. So an interjection, again, it expresses emotion, and obviously the type of emotion that's being expressed in this example is excitement, right? So when you use an interjection, the interjection stands on its own, right? Wonderful, that's the interjection, right? But if you're actually using it, people would have to wonder, why is she saying wonderful, right? So that's why I have this statement here, right? This is a general statement about why I'm happy, right? So I say, wonderful, there's my interjection, wonderful. I am very happy because my family will visit soon. Let's look at the word because here. All right, here's a great opportunity to show you an example of probably the most common subordinating conjunction. So I mentioned earlier coordinating conjunction, but here is a subordinating conjunction. So a subordinating conjunction is another way to connect two thoughts together. So as I mentioned before, I have a separate video and notes all about conjunctions, where I go into more detail about the difference between coordinating conjunctions and subordinating conjunctions. All right, so again, this time we have a subordinating conjunction. So comma rules are different with subordinating conjunctions than with coordinating conjunctions, right? So here's the link to the separate video and notes that I mentioned. All right, so we're almost done. So let's go through a summary of what we have learned today. Adjectives describe people, places, and things. So maybe a beautiful day, a new baby, or a happy person like me. I like to think that I'm a happy person. Articles often go before nouns. So a day, a swim, the room, an idea, an example. So why do I have an? Well, it's because idea starts with a vowel, right? And example starts with a vowel. So you use an when the word that comes after it starts with a vowel, or it could just make a vowel sound, like an Xbox. Right? That's a vowel sound. Nouns are people, places, things, or ideas. Examples of nouns: Sandra, home; Sue, lookout; school; happiness. Pronouns are different than nouns. This is important. So this first sentence, we've got a noun to start the sentence. Sandra sang softly. But in the second example, we have a pronoun to start the sentence. She sang softly. So here, the pronoun she is used instead of Sandra. So pronouns are used instead of nouns. Continuing on, verbs are action words. And there are also linking verbs, and I talked about that. So action words here, go, sang, carried, will visit, linking verbs, is, am. These are just two examples of how you would use the verb to be. All right. I have a separate video and notes on that verb as well, on the verb to be. Adverbs can be tricky. Most of the time they explain how actions are done. So just for today's notes, because this is how you'd use them most of the time, this is what I'd like you to try to remember, right? So this example here, sing softly. It explains how the singing is done. Conjunctions connect thoughts and or actions together. Two examples. The weather is nice, comma, so we should go swimming. In this first example, we have a coordinating conjunction. And with a coordinating conjunction, you always put a comma before your coordinating conjunction. But the comma rules are different with subordinating conjunctions. So in this case, all right, won't always be like this, but in this case, with the word because, we don't need a comma, right? So we have, I am happy because my family will visit soon. So whenever you're using the word because, it's a subordinating conjunction, and the best way to use the word because is to put it in the middle of a sentence. And when it's in the middle of a sentence, you make sure that this helps make sure that you've written a full sentence, and it also makes it easier because, as I said, you don't need a comma with it, right? So again, you always put a comma before a coordinating conjunction, but the rules with subordinating conjunctions are a little bit different. And in this case, when we put because in the middle of our sentence, we don't need to worry about a comma. Prepositions add information. Our example, she walked across the room. So across the room gives us more information about, well, in this case, where she walked, right? Now, if we just took the words she walked, that would actually get us a full sentence, right? That would be the simplest type of, simplest sentence structure that we could have. She walked, a subject, she, and a verb. Right? The subject is just who or what is doing the action, right? And in this case, we don't know who she is. She could be any female, but that's fine. We could start with a pronoun, right? She walked. Right? We have someone doing something and we know what that person did. We have a subject, she, and a verb. But I wanted to make a little bit better sentence, so I used a preposition to do that. She walked across the room. And you always want to put your preposition at the end. That's the best way to use a preposition. Lastly, interjections express emotion. The examples that I shared today were wonderful. That is great. Watch out. Really? Cool, eh? Or psst, right? Like if you're whispering something to somebody. I hope all of this has been helpful. Thank you.